Hello, welcome to another episode of Music Ally Focus. I'm Music Ally's editor, Joe Sparrow, and this week we're joined by Nur Ozdamar, YouTube's artist and label development lead for the EMEA region. That's Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we wanted to find out just what she and her team at YouTube do for artists and fans across this large region. She explains all in just 1 minute. Now, each Music Ally Focus episode analyzes one meaningful music business story at a time, and so this podcast is going to be pretty quick. It should take about the same amount of time as Peter Nestler could hypothetically skip on a unicycle 7,000 times. Peter did 237 skips in 1 minute in 2013, and why not? Now, talking about jumping around a lot, Nur Ozdamar needs to hop between a number of territories as YouTube's artist and label development lead for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So what does she and her team do? Well, I chatted to her and she described how they help artists and teams and how they choose which emerging artists that YouTube eventually partners with, and how her team consider the changing face of music consumption by users on YouTube. Let's go and speak to Nur now. All right, so we're very happy to be joined on the podcast by Nur Ozdamar, YouTube's artist and label development lead for the EMEA region. Hello, Nur.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm all the better to see you, of course. Now, first, a little bit of context. Can you explain for our listeners, well, first of all, who you are and a bit of your background, but what do you do as YouTube's artist and label development lead for the EMEA region?
My name is Nur, as you said. I was born and raised in Istanbul. I spent a big chunk of my life in Turkey. Then I moved to New York, and I lived in New York for a decade, lived and worked there, obviously. I'm now based in Southwest London. I've been living here since 2019. Moved here right before the pandemic to be part of the YouTube team. I worked in music for over 12 years now. I worked at different companies like Viacom, Translation, Fader, Universal right before YouTube. And since 2019, since I moved to London, I've been leading the artist and label development team at YouTube and covering the EMEA region. That's Europe, Middle East, and Africa. What we do is we help artists and labels across the region figure out how to use YouTube to share their music and their stories.
Yeah.
And I have a team of 6, greatest team in the world. Big shout out to Ariel, Chrissy, Janet, Josh, Julie, and Simon. Partners. We work with more developing partners: Psycho, Oscar Anton, Nipa, Somadina, Nina Chuba, Ezal, Ray, Pasalu, Colors. There's so many more I'm not mentioning. We will be here forever if I do that.
Yeah. So obviously this is quite a big region, the EMEA region. So you've got a lot of... what's the euphemism? You've got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies, I think is the one way to look at it. And you have those partners in all those different regions, and you have a team to connect with them, and you have this sort of overarching ambition. So what does that job entail? What does that support look like for those partners from your perspective that you and your team provide?
I'm sure if I were to bring my team here, there would be many more layers to it. But the simplest way I can describe what we do is we help artists and labels figure out YouTube. We're basically YouTube advisors for them, for developing artists and labels. When I say labels, on the developing label side, we mostly deal with non-majors and music companies, let's call them. Any questions they have on the platform, how to make the best of it, features, programs, they come to us to navigate and give them advice. What our support looks like on the label side and artist side can be different. But at the very basic level, we share platform information and expertise with them. That includes education. We share best practices, updates, different examples. So we want to make sure that YouTube is an easy place for them to navigate, and also like the best place for an artist and label to be. On the artist side, we focus on the channel, make sure the channel is healthy, working. What that means is we optimize the channel so they can get the music to as many people as possible, using the right features to complement their release strategy. We're the liaison between the big world of YouTube and Google and the artist, any events we have, any programs we do. Like we have this program called YouTube Edition, which is basically a video series that explore YouTube through the lens of the creator or the artist. Just very cool. You should check it out. We also have promotional stuff. So we put them on billboards and, different places. On the label side, very much the same for the roster of the label. Obviously more of a scaled play on the label side. We also do business development for labels, which entails the contractual work that's needed for music to be used on the platform and different features we have. So as you can tell, many, many different things, but you can summarize it as we're the connection between YouTube and artists and help them navigate.
Obviously, increasing plays, increasing follower numbers, increasing reach through YouTube is the golden ticket. That's what everyone wants. So, I mean, I know there's no one sort of simple answer to this, but do you sort of see, are there sort of quick wins that generally you find that people can do? Or is it really at a certain point about fine-tuning existing practices and helping guide them in a certain direction?
I usually have two pieces of advice for that. Definitely not a quick win. One is consistency. You need to commit to what you can commit to and be consistent with it. That doesn't mean 3 pieces of content a day. That means whatever is doable on your side within your resources, your mental capacity, and your creative powers. So if you can post once a month, stick to it. If you can post once a week, stick to it. But the more consistent you are, the more you educate the platform on your rhythm, and you educate your fans on your rhythm too, so they respond better to that. And then the other thing is just making sure you know the platform, because the more you know about the platform, the more you can tailor your ideas and your strategy according to it. Because if you know that you can go live right before premiering a video with your collaborator, that's a great idea that you can tap into. Or you know that you can connect with your fans through community or comments, that's another way. So if you know what you're operating within, then your creative ideas are a lot more towards what works on the platform. So the synergies are excellent. And we've seen a lot of great success examples for people who know the platform well and are consistent with their posting.
Yeah. You also mentioned that you look to partner with artists in a sort of developmental way in this large region. And of course, these are all very different artists from different communities and with using YouTube in different ways. So when you look for those artists to give them particular attention or support, what are you looking for?
When you look at it from a broader perspective, we look at data, we look around us, we keep an eye on culture, we go to shows, we get recommendations from people we know, internal or external. You might send me an artist after this that you say, keep an eye on this person. It's kind of like how an A&R person works. But for YouTube, obviously, we're not signing anyone. We're an open platform. The artists that we find the most success with are artists who care about YouTube, who are interested in doing something with YouTube and are willing to put the work in. That's the most important. So showing those signals of interest to us. And then there are some artists who we bet on very early. And my favorite example for this is Thames. When Thames joined the Foundry program is an independent artist development program we have. When Thames joined Foundry in 2020, not everyone was aware of her. That she was this magical human being with incredible talent. But we took a bet. I remember the day my friend, Caroline CSM, she's an incredible A&R and now an agent, sent me the video, how I felt. I emailed everyone. I said, we need to partner with this artist for Foundry. She didn't have an official artist channel at the time. I think she had a couple 100 subscribers. And we believed in the music. We believed in the talent. She had a lot of plans for releases and for YouTube. And we made a bet, and she's now closer to 1 million subs. I mean, she's a superstar. Her last video has, I believe, more than 10 million views on it. She's undeniably talented. Obviously, we can't take any credit for it, but it's something that I always brag about, how we got there early when no one else was.
Yeah. Well, what was the sort of support that you chose to put in place?
For Foundry, we have a specific model where the artists get a grant, a strategic partner manager support, like how I described it earlier, and some promotional levers. But the idea is to help developing artists early at a phase when they need it, and especially as they're independent. So Thames is a unique example, of course. We work across many artists, but like I said, there's no criteria, but what we're looking for is for artists to be leaned in, is how we describe them, because there's nothing we can do for them that they can't do for themselves. What we're here to do is support and give them the tips and tricks. And we know that it's fact-based, the tips and tricks work. So the more we can collaborate with them, work together, the better. We also have, I need to plug this in because I want to tell the world that this exists. We have a resource, artist.youtube.com, where all the guidance, all the strategies are available for anyone who's interested, curious, who want to learn. So it's a great resource for everyone to increase their YouTube presence.
I'll put a link to that next to the
Amazing.
podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, let's think a bit about those fans. We're talking about connecting the artists with fandom and discovery as well. What, in a sort of general sense, is the outlook of a YouTube music fan now, as we sort of are going into 2024? What have you learned about how they discover music or artists on YouTube, and how they consume artists and music on YouTube?
A couple of things. One, we know that fans want to discover, consume, participate all at once. I can't generalize the whole humanity, but we know that their needs are quite diverse and contextual. So YouTube is quite unique in that sense, that I can confidently say it's the only platform where you can experience it all in one place, right? You have the short form, where short form is perfect for discovery. You have the long form, what we call, the music videos and the interviews and the behind the scenes. Artists go live on YouTube. So there's a lot of elements. There's a lot of social tools. You can comment, you can use community, you can participate in an artist's lives. And we've seen incredible growth with shorts. In the past couple of years, we have 2 billion logged in users every month for YouTube Shorts. We're averaging over 70 billion daily views. So these are big numbers, and that speaks to the discovery element and the fans being engaged on Shorts. What I'm very excited about besides these is how the fan communities are getting together. I don't know, if you also noticed, but what we used to call fan clubs, right? At a point in time, I think that's I don't know if it's fair to say making a comeback, but fans are getting together and finding their communities, whether it's live or across different platforms. One of the features we announced that I got very excited about is YouTube comments being available on YouTube Music now, which basically is a tool for fans to, connect with other fans, talk about music. It's a quite important tool for online conversation. It's quite unique as well. There's no other DSP that has that kind of feature.
You mentioned there how music is consumed differently on YouTube compared to other audio focused streaming platforms. And it's clear that it is unique in that sense, in that, anyone can upload music. There's the commenting, the community, the live streaming, there's all these components which are all there and have become part of that sort of unique mix. That's obviously the strength of YouTube in that sense. But what can artists learn from that? Because one way of looking at it is, well, that's great, but it's also overwhelming because, as an artist, how do I do all of this? How do I encourage my fans to have watch parties and waiting for a launch of a video and do shorts and do that? So how do they approach this sort of suite of tools and say, right, I'm going to focus on this because it will be better for me and for my fans?
Another great question. I think this all, and whenever I join the artist conversations, I always ask them the question, what's your plan? What do you want to do? I said it earlier, what can you commit to? Because like you said, we have the whole experience. What we call it is a multi-format experience. We have the short form, long form, live. You have the social tools, you have the comments, you have the live stream, everything. But I think it always starts with the artist and not the platform necessarily. So if they have a solid foundation, if they have a plan in place, and if they know what they want to get out of a platform, like what's the role that YouTube plays in your career or your release or at the moment in time for you, I think it's a little bit of looking inwards, not to be super spiritual here, but really putting a plan and an idea for what they want to get out of YouTube or this partnership. Because to your point, we want artists to be successful on YouTube, and we want artists to design their own path and their own success. And what we're working towards is making everything available to them so that we're the best platform for them to thrive in and grow their career and get to more music fans. That does not mean they need to do all at once and overwhelm themselves and bombard fans. They need to really have their own plan first and then come to us and say, okay, how can I make the best out of this? And then we're there to help them navigate it, help them optimize it, because we don't want anyone to be overwhelmed. We don't want anyone to be burnt out. We want them to use YouTube to make the platform work for them. So, and that looks very different for every artist. So I would always say, before we answer any of their questions, I always start with like, what's your ultimate goal here? Or what do you want to get out of this?
I mean, you've identified there, and it's clear, that now the role of the artist has changed dramatically. It's artists at every level are really eager and understandably eager to create a direct connection with their fans for all sorts of reasons. But it's something that they want and what the fans want as well. YouTube, as you've said, is one way artists can do that. So when you look at fandom and you think about how they interact with their artists and what they want, what do they want from their favorite artists in terms of how they use YouTube? We talked about consistency, and of course, every artist is different. But what is it that they want?
What we've been seeing a lot more. I'm talking about developing artists, and I'm talking about my remit. Again, I don't want to generalize the whole humankind. Fans want more access. They want to get to know their favorite artists. When I say they want more, not necessarily more content, but more depth and more of the storytelling. So, which is why I'm talking about all these features that they can leverage, whether it's like live stream or after party, because we created these so the fans can feel like they're there with the artist at a special moment. That's why we have the premieres, because we don't have music videos airing on TV anymore. So we wanted to create that moment where you were waiting for the new music video to be available and be able to listen. So fans definitely want to be a part of the experience. Again, which is why comments is such a crucial place. But on the other side, I think artists also wants fans to be at the center of the experience and want fans to get involved. I've never heard a release strategy that was a one-way push. They always want to invite the fans in somehow. And we see more and more examples of this, that not only artists put something out, but they take something from the fans and they respond to it as well. So it's a two-way street. We have great examples, like Lina Mayhem in France is a good one. She's an artist we work with. She basically she made her song available on Shorts, and then one of the fans created this like trend with her song, and she went and meet the fan, and then they did that together. So she responded to a fan creating something for her. Or we had Emma Peters, who played her album, for the first time live to her fans. And in between, she was chatting with the fans. So she was doing a big live stream, playing the album for the first time before it's released. And in between, she was having conversations with fans, listening to comments. This is where we're at now. Instead of, here's my album, here's the CD or whatever, you go listen to it and we can see you at the live show. It's a lot more participatory. I think the fans are looking for this. And I think the artists also want to make fans a part of the experience. So it's mutually interesting for both parties.
Now, at this point, let me just take a moment to remind you that last year, Music Ally launched a series of 5 free courses covering everything you need to know about Amazon Music for artists, including programming and curation, selling artist merchandise, understanding voice technology, reaching audiences via Alexa, and live streaming on Twitch. Supported by Amazon Music, these courses are all completely free to access. And now, thanks to Amazon's support, Music Ally is also able to offer complimentary certification to any individual or company that completes all 5 of the courses. So what have you got to lose? Nothing. That's what, because they're all free. So you can find a link to the Amazon Music for Artists series in our show notes beneath the podcast. In a general sense, the role of music is changing as well. This is across the whole industry. We've gone from perhaps that sort of more one-track system of I'm going to release music, you're going to go and buy it, and we go from there. And music is now being used as an inherent component of other media. So, like you said, user-generated content, live streams, but that could also be music that's being played while perhaps on YouTube fans are watching someone gaming and there's music playing in the background. So there's a real sort of more nuanced approach to the way music is being used now. And that means consumption has changed. People who are fans of music, perhaps, but actually they're fans of gaming and they're hearing music as part of that experience. So how do you as a team then, you're working with these artists and in these regions, how do you think about music fans? Do you have to sort of partition them into different forms of consumption? Like that?
Not really. We don't necessarily partition them into different forms of consumption, but we do look at, when we work with an artist, we do look at their fan base or any new fans that they want to create and inherit, if that's the right term, and understand their behaviors and what they're looking for. But we do observe a lot of different behaviors on the platform. What you touched on is a very good one, that the people get hooked up on the melody or the song and not necessarily the artist or the story. I have a 12-year-old nephew who hears songs on shorts, has no idea who the artist is, doesn't care about the story or the connection, and just listens to the song again and again and again because he's hooked on the melody. I'm like, do you know who this person is? Doesn't matter. But he also loves going to a live show and seeing all the hard work and the performance because he has an appreciation for, putting in the work to do something. So even within one individual, there's a spectrum of different nuances. But I think, I think the most important thing here is the fan sitting at the center of the experience, and it can vary. It can be a live experience or an online experience, but I think it's always about the fan being catered to. We see a lot of collaborations on the platform between creators and artists too. You talked about gaming. There's a lot of, we now see, gaming companies having soundtracks and partnering with artists. So all of that behavior is also happening on the platform. And there's even channels that are catered to that. I don't know how familiar you are, but there are full channels dedicated to calming music for animals, for example. And these are proper businesses that make a living out of YouTube, which I admire. And I'm trying to get my dog to listen to more of that. I will send you a link. But the beauty of being a platform like YouTube, there's a place for everyone on the platform. And I actually like the answer of I can't segment anyone because there's literally there's a piece of content or a piece of music for everyone on YouTube. And it's the beauty of working at a big platform like that.
Yeah. And looking forward then, what are your ambitions for your team in the next sort of 5 years or so? And how do you measure that success? Because what you're saying, what you're doing is you're working with emerging artists or in territories where YouTube is very different and used differently. So how do you measure your success looking forward?
You're going to make me think about our OKRs now.
Yeah, your bosses will be listening to this.
Amazing. Very relevant topic. First of all, before anything else, I want my team to be happy, healthy, and thriving. Number one for me always. We want to work with more developing artist labels. I'm not talking about numbers, but we want to have a meaningful impact in their careers and their businesses, because these are businesses. People make a living out of YouTube. So it's not just a couple numbers here and there on promotion, but we want to make sure we have a long-term sustainable impact on them. And that can look like subscriber growth. That can look like, a creative milestone, or that can look like, them making a lot more money from YouTube than they did before. So those are the milestones we look at: more reach, more growth, and obviously them making a living and making more money out of YouTube. We want YouTube to be one measure of success for me is YouTube to be top of mind when it comes to releasing music. It truly makes me happy when I go to a region and they say, YouTube is the platform for our region or our country. And I know what that's like. Love that. I'm from Turkey, and it's the case in Turkey as well. But more broadly, if I look a little bit if I zoom out a little, we're committed to be the number one source of revenue for the music industry. And I think the platform, the twin engine of revenue, has built towards that. So we're continuing to work towards that ambition and work with, labels, artists, publishers, and making our relationships even stronger.
Okay. And I will put some links to the various things that you mentioned next to the podcast, and listeners can go and check them out for themselves. Finally, Nur, as one final contextual piece of information, we're talking about music business, but let's talk about music. If you could only pick one piece of music to listen to for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Oh my God, how much time do you have for me to make it? I'm a Libra.
You can wax lyrical.
We can be here forever. This is going to be very tough. And this answer might change tomorrow, but I'm going to give it. I'm a big fan of Jeff Buckley.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. A beautiful voice, beautiful music. I'm spiritually connected to it. Somehow, I don't know what my connection could be to Jeff Buckley, but I can listen to Jeff Buckley for forever. Yeah. I don't know what.
I think I've had a couple of people mention, because I asked this to all the guests, and I think a couple of people have mentioned it and said that they find his music incredibly meaningful, and that's a reason that they've chosen him. So there you go.
Maybe you have a connection with Jeff Buckley and not us.
Well, maybe that's it. Yes, I'm channeling the fandom.
Jeff Buckley energy. Yeah. This question will live with me forever, and I'm gonna
feel free to.
I'm gonna keep texting you every day.
Yes, with updates. Yeah, feel free. Yeah. All right, Nur, thanks ever so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. This was lovely.
So there we are. Thanks again to Nur for joining us on the podcast. There's a couple of links below the podcast that she mentioned while we were talking. And if you found that interview useful, please do share it on with someone else who you think will get something out of it. If you want to get in touch with me, of course, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me on joe@musically.com. That's Joe, Joe, @musically.com. We also have a free weekly email that you can sign up to called The Knowledge, which rounds up bits and pieces of the best analysis, news, marketing insight, and skills from Music Ally, as well as some links to some fairly ridiculous things. So sign up and impress your friends. Links to that are also in the description. Right, that's it. Thanks for joining me here on the Music Ally podcast. As always, I've been Joe Sparrow, Music Ally's editor. You've been you. And until next time, farewell.